So, I had a teacher at my seminary who taught in New York City, and he had a hair structure just like mine, right? And so his wife would never let him wear hats. She said he looked dumb in them. So he decided on the umbrella. And they lived on the outskirts of New York, and so he decided to bring an umbrella in with him every day. And it rained a lot too, so it kind of worked out. And he had this nice little attaché, this nice leather thing, and he'd slide that umbrella in there. Every once in a while, he'd just carry it, and he was proud of his little umbrellas as he went in, riding on the subway to his office. Well, he had one problem, though. He kept forgetting his umbrellas at work. And day after day, he would leave the umbrella, and he would just go out and buy another one. About a baker's dozen in, his wife had had enough. You're done. I'm cutting you off. You're not going in to buy another umbrella. You bring them home. It's time. So on this fateful day, he went ahead and went in and did as his wife told him. Sat down on the subway and was riding in, and when his stop came, there was an older lady sitting next to him, and he grabbed his bag and his umbrella, and he got up and started to leave. Well, the old lady grabbed him by the collar. Said, "What are you doing? That's my umbrella. Are you trying to steal from me? That's awful, stealing from an old woman." "Ma'am, I am so sorry. I did not. It's just habit. I reached down for the umbrella, totally apologize. Here's your umbrella back. I'm sorry." And it kind of made a mark on him, because when you're kind of in my sphere of what we do, you don't want a bad reputation, and it just kind of eats at you if you've done something wrong, and you don't want to have that leak out or anything. But so he went on to work, didn't really think more about it, did his whole day of work. Unbeknownst to him, his wife had called ahead and said, "You do not let him leave the office," to his assistant, "without those umbrellas." And so the assistant bound them all up together. It was about a wad this big, put a nice little twine thing on it, and just handed it to him as he went out the door. And he went, "Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you." Went back down to ride the subway home, and went in and had a seat, starting to get comfortable. And he looked up, and just in front of him to the side was that same old woman. And when she saw him, she looked at him and looked down at the umbrellas, and looked back at him and just scowled and said, "Well, you've really made a hell of a racket out of it, haven't you?" "Ma'am, I didn't." Yeah, you get the joke? Umbrellas? Anyway, what are you going to do? Everything is a narrative in our life. Everything is from a certain point of view. For him, he just forgot his umbrellas and we're bringing them home. To the old woman, he's an umbrella thief and had a really good day of it. He had over a dozen that he had stolen that day. That's what's so interesting about humanity. We see life as a narrative. And right now, you are living the narrative you believe is going to happen to you, and that has happened to you, and you tell people stories about that you want. You kind of don't tell the stories you don't want people to know. And so you have this narrative that you're constructing at all times. And what's interesting about all this, and they've done tons of scholarship about this, is that depending on what your aim is, what your narrative is, you will ignore everything that doesn't measure up to it. You'll ignore everything that won't help your story or the narrative of your life. Think about all the stuff we ignore in our everyday, ordinary life that's automatic in our brain or we don't even pay attention to. But if it's something that's interesting, that will help us get where we need to go or fits our story, we pay attention to it. It's called a value system. It's a structured value system where as you walk through the day, you are looking consciously and unconsciously for items that fit your story, that fit what you're trying to do. And so there is a rich, deep value system that dramatically affects our everyday, ordinary experiences every single day. Think about all the stuff you ignore and some of the things you cue in on. It's fascinating how the mind works. How does it do that? What's going on? So we better, to live our lives to the fullest, have the right values in place, have the right structure in place so that we can see the blessings, the miracles, God's work in our life, to see that true path as we walk through. It's very important for us to be able to do this. And this is where the Scripture meets us today. It is a battle of worldviews. There are several large worldviews of Christianity and not Christianity that come up. And today is a huge one for us. Now, while Jesus was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. And so you see this, just this incredible scene. Now, we can really get into the minutia of everything going on, but what I believe the true story is telling is more of a general understanding of what's happening. And so you have this lady who has been absolutely overwhelmingly, her narrative has been changed. And she is going in out of thankfulness, out of just a sheer sense of what do I want to say? What's the good word here? Just out of thanks. And just wants to show her appreciation to the man, the Savior, the God that saved her, that has impacted her narrative, her life in such a wonderful way, that she would give something so valuable, so important, and give it to Jesus Christ on this day. See, this is one of the worldviews that Jesus gives us and brings into our world. And sometimes it can be hard, some of the words. So on the back of the bulletin, if you took one, I put this as notes so that you could have the different verbiage as you go out. And if you'd like to follow with me later, please do, because this is important. And you're going to see this through social media or the algorithms. You're going to see this through society. We see it in the world happening right now. These two different structures that are juxtaposed to each other, fighting. And the first is relational self-sacrifice. Relational self-sacrifice. Okay, what's relational? I like words. This means it is done by a conscious, intentional decision. It's a personal choice. You weren't forced to do it. You weren't, other than compelled by gratitude to do it. This is something you chose to do on your own. It's relational. You chose to give this up. And sacrifice is the act of giving up something highly valued for the sake of someone else. Giving up power, giving up riches, giving up time, giving up all sorts to someone else, something, but someone else than you. And so relational self-sacrifice is actually a gift taught to us from God, because humanity isn't born with this idea whatsoever. The first two practical words a child learns is no and mine. We are born into not relational self-sacrifice. We have to be taught that others are just as important as you. We have to be taught that everything I see I can't have. You have to be taught to share and save. And all of these very mature ideas are taught to us. Humanity did not come up with these. They were brought to us by example. And in this case, Jesus Christ. And Jesus sees this incredible act. She's giving away power, wealth, not to gain favor, just out of appreciation, love, relational self-sacrifice, giving. She has done a beautiful thing to me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial, because Jesus' last days had come. He was right on the verge of it all going downhill. And then he says this. This is how important. And so when you see this, these are worldviews. These are these lessons, very important for Jesus to pass on. I tell you the truth, Jesus said, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. How many years later? I've just spoken about the act, a relational, self-sacrificing act of a woman who came in to show her appreciation. This event, this act is very important for us and for Jesus. The whole idea of giving something away for the sake of others. This is very important for us. And it isn't just a nice idea that we think about every once in a while, like these heroic acts of service and sacrifice. We see this, it's Flag Day. We see this in our fathers, these general big acts. We can remember different items that they had done for us. But in the end, if you have a loving, caring, engaging relationship, it's less about the detail and more about the everyday, ordinary feeling and relationship you have, of all the little acts along the way that showed their love, their support throughout the years. It's hard to pick one or two things out because it just continues over this entire decade and lifetime. And this is what we're talking about. It's a worldview. It's what we program into our value system that affects how we walk and see and act and speak throughout our day. It defines every minute, so that we can come at it with a sacrificial mindset. Greater love has no one than this, that we lay down our life for our friends, right? That we lay down his life for his friends. And I don't often go into the original language, but lay down means to give up or set aside. What's interesting about life here is it's actually the Greek psyche. You know, the P-S-Y-C-H-E, psyche. You give up your very self. It isn't just your body, because everyone thinks, well, a wounded soldier or someone who steps in front of a car to save a child, or this physical aspect. It means something greater and the same. It means your very psyche, your very self changes. You are in a different mindset. Your mind has changed to sacrifice, to serve, to consider others as equal or greater, and to be able to live that life out. This is something that is hard to learn, and you have to fight the human will all the way on this. The ego wants to set ourselves above. And so this whole idea of laying down our life, this whole mentality of this is so important for us. It's sort of like a death by 1,000 cuts. And I love that phrasing, because when you have to give up something, again, I remember my young son having to share, and you could just see the seething, giving his younger sister part of the candy that was given to him. It was his, it was mine, and I'm giving it away to this unworthy person. And you could see the struggle in the eyes. You've had kids, you know this. You see it there. It's a struggle, because the human will doesn't want to do that. It makes no sense. Why would I give up what's mine? Let them get their own. This is mine. It's there. It's embedded. It's a human frailty and easily manipulated. And so God is wanting us to rise above this, right? Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. And so I only bring this up because it relates to our story, that Jesus is trying to move us up, right? He's trying to aim us to something better than ourselves. He's trying to teach a life system, a worldview that changes everything as you walk through the day. But it takes maturity, it takes time, because the broken human will looks a lot different. What does the human will say to this wonderful act of love that this woman, who wasn't bothering anyone else, who came and displayed her gratefulness to Jesus, what were the people around saying? If you've ever worked anywhere, this has happened to you already. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another. If you don't know what that word is, ask the person next to you. It's not great, right? They're scowling, they're chirping, they're cutting and putting down, right? Indignantly, they're the bad attitude, the bitterness, right? The cynicism, it's all that awfulness coming out. What do they care? Why would they care what she's doing? But they were very indignant. Why? What a waste of asset. What a waste of that perfume. It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and money given to the poor. That's a poor back-end excuse to complaining, but you need to hate productively. This isn't a good way to do it. And they rebuked her harshly. Look at these words. Indignant. They rebuked, harsh. That's what's happening, right? And the disciples are right there with them. They're all together watching this happen, and they're cutting her. This is where the other half of God's plan has to come in. Because the human condition is something different. Apart from God, what does it look like? It's hedonistic self-gain. Hedonistic. What do I mean by this? I know you hear these words and no one actually helps define what they are. It means devoted to maximizing personal pleasure. It's about getting the next hit. It's not about relationship. It's about the feeling. I just want to feel good. I just want to get that next hit. It's a theory that all human behavior is motivated by the desire to just maximize pleasure and minimize pain. That's all it's about. So essentially, they think you're a cow, I guess. I don't know. That's what the opposing worldview is. On one side, you have this relational self-sacrifice. On the other side, you have this hedonistic self-gain. Jesus responds to this awfulness, this thought, this human condition that very much exists today. Leave her alone. I wish there would have been an exclamation point. Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. You could also say for me. This beautiful sacrifice has hit me too. I don't bring this story up very often because it's a personal thing and it's whatever, but when you see what this woman does, when I first came on board, this is a second career for me, and thank the Lord that George and Kip were very understanding, and they basically said, okay, John, you're on board, now go do your thing. Let me know if you have questions. That's what it felt like. I know they were right there. They were coaching me, but okay, start doing visits, go. Like, okay. And I would go out with Anthony Yates, I would visit different parts of town, and this really hit home to me, and I had to really work through this, and I still have to work through this today. You would go into the home of someone who had no money, who could barely eat, who did not have assets, did not have the right clothes. But when they knew a pastor was coming into their house, what did they do? Guess. They got the best that they could do. I knew they couldn't afford it. As soon as I walked through, they were giving me like cheesecake slices and all of these incredible things and had their best on. And I didn't feel grateful. I think the best feeling I felt was shame. Like, I don't deserve their best. And I knew that what they were putting in front of me, they could not afford. And what am I going to do? Say no? Oh, nope, I don't want to eat it. Like, ugh. So I took, and they were just so happy to have me there. And we talked, and they gave the best of what they had. And I had to go talk, because this would happen time and time again. And I sat down with Kip and George, and I go, how do you do it? As I feel awful. I don't feel great when I leave. I feel awful that I took something very important from them. And Kip very wisely said, John, they're not doing this for you. You represent someone greater. They see Jesus coming into their house and blessing them. And they want to give to Jesus the best that they've got. And you just happen to be the person who's representing God. And that's hard to hear. Can you imagine someone telling you that? That's hard to hear. That's hard to take on. That's hard to understand. And John, if they have a good relationship with God, they're going to embrace you. And if they don't have a good relationship, they're going to keep you at arm's length and barely interact with you. It is a big thing to kind of absorb. And even to this day, I try and honor what people do, to honor Jesus Christ, to pass that on, and to thank Jesus for what's happening. You know what it is? It's a humbling experience. It humbles you very quickly, right? That hedonistic, though, self-gratifying idea doesn't care about any of that stuff, though. man, if anyone ever criticized them for doing that, I would crush them just like Jesus would. How dare you say anything against the people that just want to give their best to God? But this hedonistic self-gratification doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about the cost to you. It doesn't care about their own future. It doesn't care about it. They just want the next hit. They just want the next pleasure hit. It doesn't matter. They'll take and take and take as long as they feel great. It's about me. It's about my next hit. It's about what I feel like doing. It's about me. Wow. It's a form of egoism, right? That you don't do anything unless you personally benefit from it. And I got to tell you, is that how families and society is built? On taking? No. Jesus knows this. God knows this. And so relational sacrifice, self-sacrifice, is how families are brought together. It's how societies are built. And yet, when we look at the way news is given, the way we get information through the algorithms that present ideas in front of you, is very much tailored to exploit the human frailty of hedonism and self-gain, to keep you on to that next hit. And so it is a struggle of worldviews today, right? And there's a major problem. Jesus would go on to say, the poor will always be among you. He's saying this is an awful excuse. How dare you drag the poor into this? And you need to help them every time you can, but you will not always have me. And this really breaks my heart. She did what she could, right? She did the best she could to honor what was given. Oh, wow. This is a loving God, right? And he teaches us, the seeds, us, that fell among thorn stands for those who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by life's worries. They're choked by the riches. They're choked by the pleasures, and they do not mature. Did you ever notice that word before? I didn't. Acting like a hedonistic, self-gratifying person makes you act like a toddler. That's what a kid does. An adult, mature, whole, I don't want to say, someone who is mature doesn't act that way. They've learned over time through lessons, right? We must learn that denying our appetites today leads to something greater in the future. Maturity has these wonderful characteristics like patience and prudence. We learn these lessons along the way, don't we? But we're always struggling against, I want it really bad right now. That 12-year-old never goes away, folks. You just learn to hide it. That desire to want and to get that thing, it's always going to be there. But as we mature, Jesus is saying, if you want to mature, if you want to rise above, then that relational self-sacrifice. At one time, we too were foolish, disobedient, deceived, and enslaved by all kinds of garbage that they put in front of us, right? We lived in malice and envy. Do you see the product of that life, though? We lived then in malice and envy, being hated and hating on one another. Have you ever seen the comments in social media? Do you ever spend any time scrolling through the comments of posts? Malice and envy, hate and being hated. We're just inundated with it right now. Oh, we are in a battle of worldviews, and we just created the tool to exploit it. Do you want to live a bitter life? Do you want to live a life filled with hate and anger and cynicism? I don't want to live bitter. Do you want to live bitter? We don't want to live a bitter life. I don't want that. And so Jesus says, hey, come follow me. I've got you. But when the kindness and love of God our Savior appeared, he saved us from all that. Not because of things that we're doing, right? Righteous things that we have done, but because of his mercy. Isn't that a wonderful thing? This is how the story ends. If you think I'm missing the point, this is how the story ends. So you have this incredible act of relational self-sacrifice, just like every other day. This incredible act of goodness, and then everyone putting her down. Does it go a little lower? Here's how the story ends. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this because he was willing to just take money to do it. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Do you see the two opposing stories happening right next to each other? The worldviews going back and forth? The worst thing you can do with the best thing we can possibly do, side by side. You know, Jesus' sacrifice for us was not just a powerful one-time event. It certainly was on the cross, but he gave us a way to live, right? To be able to take in the fresh air, to live a fulfilling life of joy and purpose and meaning, and all of this great adventure sitting in front of us, walking with him. You may only have 2 fingers and 1 leg when you're done, but it'll be a heck of a story, and he'll be with you the whole way. Every act of Jesus was and is based on this sacrificial love. He didn't have to. He was not compelled. He does it because he loves you. And this is the kind of relationship that builds, it fills, it lifts, it affirms, it encourages us into life with confidence. Now that's what I want to live by. When I enter a room, I want people to go, oh, it's John. Not, oh, gosh. Here comes Mr. Grabby Grabby. Nobody wants that. And I thank him for it. Amen.